Let's start here with the teams that we know aren't really going to do much. First off, let's go in the Atlantic. And, Chris and I have made our thoughts known on the Red Wings with the Iser plan, as many would echo the sentiments that, they're just good enough. They're just good enough to not be bad, but not good enough to make the playoffs. Be the best way I could describe them. Um, yeah. Buffalo, no direction with that team right now, and that, they traded away Paterka. Yes, they still have Tage Thompson, but really nothing no reason to have any sort of hope of even like a playoff bet on them. Boston, I know it's a fall far. It's just weird to see them being the bottom team in the Atlantic Division there on the east, on the right side there. I mean, I know that it's going to go as Pasternak goes, as they're scoring essentially. They got Victor Arvidsson on their second line right now. There's not much. There's not a lot to be excited about. I mean, if you're a Bruins fan, maybe watch. I mean, actually, can't even watch more Celtics games because Tatum's going to be out for the year. So it's going to be a rough TD Garden winter here.
Look at me crying for like the Boston Bruins or just the New England area in general. Like they have become so accustomed to winning. Listen, I'm not crying, right? Like the Boston Bruins are here because they've done a poor job of building their squad. They've made some poor choices in players that they brought in, right? Elias Lindholm being one, Zadorov being the other. They let Brad Marchand walk, and we know how that finished for him. Their pipeline is kind of just, it's all right, but this is a team that's probably they're probably gonna be bad for a little bit before they're good again. So I would strap in though. I don't know if they're gonna be worse than Buffalo though, because that is truly something. But I don't see a single team on this board that is going to flirt with any division. It's just not fathomable.
No, I know. We went through the Atlantic. I'll run through the Metro here. Columbus certainly in the mix for a playoff spot. They agreed, not a division or even a team that a lot of things would have to go right for them to win the conference. Islanders with Schaefer, I know they said he's not guaranteed a spot, but let's face it, he would have to have a miserable camp in order to not get a spot on that team. And while I think he is a difference maker, I don't know, even in a thin Metropolitan division, I don't know if that's a playoff team this year. Reasons to be excited out on Long Island, but I don't know if playoffs yet. Same thing with Philly. It's going to be a team that's, taking a next step towards developing as a cohesive unit. I don't think they'll be a bad team. There's just not a playoff team. And then the Penguins, I know Sid says he's not going anywhere, but I mean, there's really just no reason to stick around Pittsburgh. So, I would think maybe at some point, unless he just really is that loyal to Steel City, like maybe he gets tired of it because their direction is towards rebuilding. It's not towards trying to retool for like maybe one last playoff run for Sid. Like that's not happening.
I have a feeling he's going to decide what he wants to do, and Kyle Dubas and the gang are going to do whatever he decides. I mean, there was a point in time where the Pittsburgh Penguins were really, really bad, and Mario Lemieux was still there the year that Sidney Crosby joined the NHL, because that's how long he's been here. Which also, if you're listening to this today and live, happy birthday, Sid, who is now 38. I can't see him wearing another jersey. I can't see it. It is really hard to see that. But he is a fierce competitor, and there are players that are just built different, and they want to win, and they want to do whatever they can to win. And maybe he decides that he wants to go somewhere else and chase another Stanley Cup, which is well within his right to do. He has accomplished everything that you can accomplish as a hockey player. Like, what else does he have to do, right? Like, he could decide to not play hockey tomorrow, and there wouldn't be a single thing on his mantle that he hasn't achieved. So I guess it just comes down to what he wants to do, what his family wants to do. I don't know if he wants to just sit there and mentor the next wave of players coming in, but I don't see this being a very good year for the Pittsburgh Penguins. They are going to be really, really bad.
Would you say worse than the East bad, like below Boston, below Buffalo? Because I feel like Sydney keeps them from that, but not by much.
I feel like they have a legitimate chance of finishing last in the East. And I think that's what, if I'm Kyle Dubas, that's what I want to do. That's the team I want to put on paper. I want this team to be absolutely miserable because you're not fighting for anything this year. And there is a great prospect that is playing in the state of Pennsylvania, right? At where is he playing? Penn State.
Penn State.
So I mean, Gavin McKenna could be the next one, if you want to call it that. And how poetic would it be for the Pittsburgh Penguins to go through the last 20 years of being, a really good hockey team, and then the next one shows up and kind of, I would say, save the team, because when Sidney Crosby showed up, like,
But it's another torch handing off. Like when
right, you're kind of handing on to the next, the next generational talent, the same way Mario Lemieux did to, Sid. But so if I'm Kyle Dubas, I want to make sure this team is bad on paper, and that probably means moving out some of those expiring contracts. We'll see what they do with Evgeny Malkin. They got to find something to do with Erik Karlsson's contract. Somebody's going to take that on. They may have to retain some money to do it, but I could see the Pittsburgh Penguins being the worst team in the East.
Well, I think when you started talking, you like kind of hit the nail on the head where it's, does Sid's loyalty win out or does his competitive fire? Because, like, listen, like you pointed, like you explained, Pittsburgh is going down to try and get top pick. Maybe he's waiting around one more year. If that happens, and now they have what we talked about with the torch passing, the McKenna, like you said, the in-state, the Penn State guy going to Pittsburgh first overall, it just makes the story writes itself. But if that somehow doesn't happen, then maybe after a full losing season and you don't come away with the top overall pick, maybe at some point Sid's like, you know what? Yeah, I need to play meaningful hockey again. Like, I can't be playing games in February where they are borderline almost meaningless already. Like, it doesn't.
And he had
matter
91 points last year. Like, he's like,
still very good, and that's why I don't think they'll finish dead last. They're in the mix, but I don't think they will. I think he will will them out of it. They could still finish second, third, worst, and still have a shot at the top pick.
He probably will, because again, there's no quit in him. We know that Father Time is undefeated, so at some point it's going to catch up to him. But I think for the Penguins, it's just, there are probably executives that would like him to be like, hey, where else do you want to go? Because you can get a pretty decent return for Sidney Crosby, right? If you trade him, it doesn't matter where. You're getting your picks and basically whatever you want, not just because of the player that he is, but the crazy team-friendly deal that he still has and the production that he can still give you. And he can go to another team, and even if he's the second line center, right? Like, it truly doesn't matter. He is so good at so many things. And removing him from that Pittsburgh lineup would just, like, it would decimate them completely. They would not be able to recover, which is perfect if you want to finish last. That's the way you do it. So I'm sure they're not going to tank intentionally because Sid's there, and that's not going to happen. But you're trying to put a team on the ice that is just miserable. It's miserable. The Penguins are an old team as well. Like, that they can try to drag this out as much as they want, but they're going to have to rebuild or retool or use whatever fancy word you want to use at this point. And it's better to do it sooner rather than later.
All right. So, you said you got none of these teams in the mix of the division or conference. Columbus to make the playoffs, as I pull that up here. Looking at, let's see. Yep. Yes. Plus 220. You consider that? I mean, Detroit, just to put it in perspective, it's not in alphabetical order on DraftKings, which is very annoying. Scroll down here. Yes, plus 260 for Detroit. The Islanders are plus 242. So
I think it's like, Columbus is a good team. I think with Dean Evason there, like, they demonstrated that they can score goals. The problem was their defensive game, especially on the road, because at home
they were very good.
Like, they could not slow down. They were a juggernaut. And then they go on the road, and it's like it didn't work. It's also going to depend on Jet Greaves and how much he plays and what he can bring to the table. There are a lot of question marks with this team. I would say that to a certain extent, The Islanders have a better chance of making the playoffs than the Islanders do. The Islanders have a better chance of making the playoffs than the Blue Jackets do. The Islanders are built from the back end out. They are probably one of the most boring teams to watch on the ice. The product could cure.
But you can win that way.
Listen,
win enough.
You can play a style of hockey that is boring, that is not very eventful. They have one of the better goalies in the NHL in Ilya Sorokin. That there's no question about it. I think Patrick Wong's going to figure it out. They go out. Yes, they moved Noah Dobson out. That's kind of unfortunate. But I do think that this defensive group is going to be okay. And the rest of that team and its structure is going to be manageable. And I think because of how bad the Metropolitan division can be, that there's a spot for them to go out and do some damage, right? Like, you look at their blue line and it's nothing crazy, but I mean, Tony DeAngelo came and he was pretty effective.
He played well down the stretch.
He did. We'll see what Schaefer can do. Pelech and Pollock are still there. Romanov got his big deal. They're not crazy talented up front, but they have guys who can contribute. It's going to take a team effort from them. But
and they bring in a guy like Jonathan Drouin too, which that's not setting the world on fire, but he's kind of like a perfect Islanders type player, and like how he contributes and ways he can, like he's a good fit for the Islanders, as crazy as it is to say about anybody.
A lot of close games for them. A lot of those like 3-2, 3-1s kind of thing. Like they have to play that defense first kind of hockey. It's got to be by committee, and it's got to be relying on your goalie to get you, I don't know, keep it close kind of thing, right? You got to go into the second period, keep it close, and then try to gut out some of those wins. Where Columbus, the question marks are just, they're bigger, right? That's kind of the problem there. Like how good is Jet Greaves? And if they're not as dominant as they were at home this season, well, can they make up for that on the road?
They have a higher ceiling but a lower floor, basically.
Yeah, high risk, high reward kind of thing. Whereas the Islanders, they're just like, nobody wants to watch them.
You know they're going to be right in that night, probably 80 to 90 point range easily, maybe north of 90 points. Maybe they sneak a wild card spot.
Yeah.
Well, or I mean, we're going to talk about let's talk about the long shots, because that's the thing. Will there be that wild card spot available for the Metropolitan division to take? Or could they get more than one? I don't think they could get more than one if they do get one. Looking at the top teams here, yes, you got the defending champion Capitals are actually the third best favorites at plus 500 for the division. The Devils at plus 280, the Hurricanes at plus 130, the Rangers are plus 550. And I could see somebody trying to talk themselves into that. Rangers make the playoffs. I don't know if they're division contenders. Then you look at that Atlantic division where Florida, the defending champs, plus 140, Lightning plus 280, Leafs, the defending division champs, at plus 400. And then Ottawa at plus 800 and the Canadians at 14-1. Looking at conference odds, it's Florida plus 310, Carolina plus 380, Tampa plus 550, the Devils plus 750, the Leafs plus 850, and then the Capitals and the Senators are 16-1, as well as the Rangers, and then the Canadians at 25-1. So, let's start in the Metropolitan division, because I think what that really boils down to here is, everybody's going to pick Carolina. They're the favorites for a reason. They're built probably the best. The goaltending is the issue there. Is Freddie Anderson going to stay healthy? How much can you rely on Kochetkov? Because last year he started off playing well, and then the more they had to lean on him, the more the wheels came off for him, and then Freddie Anderson came back. But just looking at the division here, it's obviously their division to lose. But if Jack Hughes stays healthy, if Dougie Hamilton stays healthy, can the Devils maybe steal it from him?
I don't think they can. And I think it comes down to just how the Carolina Hurricanes are built. Yes, their goaltending is questionable, but it's been questionable for the last 2 years, easy, and they still have the results that they have. They are loaded up front, and not in the traditional loaded way that you think, right? They have 3 lines that can really do damage, and defensively, just an absolute juggernaut. It is so hard for you to kind of outwork them and outbattle them, which is a direct image of what Rob Brendamore is. Now you add Keandre Miller to that group as well. It's hard, man. It's hard to look at Carolina and go, like, who's taking their spot.
To me, if Freddie Anderson has health issues and they don't rectify that, and Jack Hughes stays healthy, Dougie Hamilton stays healthy, Jacob Markstrom was fine last year, but he's had his issues in the past games played. So if those guys all stay healthy, I mean, at some point the Devils are going to take that step forward. I don't know if they're. I think it's basically when you look at the Metropolitan Division, Carolina wins it. Devils have a very strong season that maybe would have won them a different division, but not because they're playing against, they're behind Carolina. Not good enough there. That's how I could see that going down.
Even if Carolina needs, let's say they need a goalie, right? And they have to go out and acquire one. I feel like just how their system is built, you could put a lot of goalies in that system that are mediocre and get a really good outcome. So it's not the be all end all for them if their goaltending is kind of mid. You're just looking for decent goaltending from whoever starts in Carolina. And if it has to be a 50-50 split between Anderson and Chekhov, fine, do that. But you have to get just solid goaltending. That's it. Nothing else. And ideally, you'd probably get an upgrade so you don't get run over in the playoffs. But that's a kind of a can that they can kick down a little bit here, see at the trade deadline. I mean, Detroit's got 600 goalies.
So I got the free agent goalies that are, that'll be deadline quote unquote candidates. Carey Price, his contract comes off the books. So, maybe they bring him out of retirement. Sergei Bobrovsky, obviously the Panthers aren't trading him. Yeah. Jacob Markstrom, obviously the Devils aren't trading him. Spencer Knight's a restricted free agent. That's not the path you'd want to go anyway, I think. Pete Mrazek out in Anaheim. Philip Gustafson, I don't think Minnesota's moving him. I think they get something done with him. Lorraine Brossois. Stu Skinner, Cam Talbot. Leafs aren't moving Stolars. Sharks, if they want Nedeljkovic, great. Come and get him at the deadline, but I don't think that's a viable option. Connor Ingram. Rangers would not trade Jonathan Quick to help the Hurricanes in the same division. Vanacek, Scott Wedgwood. Colorado's not going to move him unless they get blown away by an offer. So there's really not I get what you're saying. You could put like a Jake Allen in that system and he would thrive. I don't know if there's a goalie available that like
there maybe is. You said one name on there.
Mrazek?
No, you said Stuart Skinner. He could leave the hellhole that is Edmonton, and he would it would be night and day for him because of the defensive structure. And he'd probably have success in Carolina.
But I mean, if Edmonton's given up, that would have to be part of like, okay, we're getting a goalie from another team and we're moving Stuart Skinner out because like they're not going to flip. It's not like Freddie Anderson's going to go there. It's not like Kochekhov's going to go there and do any better.
That's Edmonton's problem to figure out, right? But goalies can move. We've seen that. But yes, I agree that Carolina needs a goalie, and maybe they got to pay a little bit to get them, right? That's just the nature of the beast here. There are teams that will move goalies, and they don't need anybody to be, crazy. You just got to go out and get somebody who
make the saves you're supposed to make.
Exactly. Just be a kind of like a middle, your goal saved above expected. If it's at 0, you're doing a good job. That's it. That's all they need. The team aspect for them is really good.
We talked about Carolina. We talked about the Devils, which is basically they go as Jack Hughes' health and the other guys we mentioned. We haven't really spent too much time on the Capitals and the Rangers before we move over to the Atlantic. I think the Rangers can bounce back. I think the Rangers can have a strong season. I just don't think that they're necessarily contenders for the division. But, to make the playoffs, that's definitely something I consider. But now let's talk about the Capitals here because, like, people will be like, oh, you're disrespecting the team that won the division last year. It's like they had a lot of things riding for them last year that I don't think, like that Ovechkin momentum last year of him going for the goal record. Like, I don't care what anybody says. Like, I'm not saying he's going to fall off a cliff and, like, never score again. But there's something about chasing history like that and, coming back from a broken leg in 6 weeks to continue that pursuit. He doesn't have that there anymore. There's not that hunger to get his name on the cup that has eluded him all this time, because he's had that. Not to say he wouldn't want to win one again. Probably one of the best Stanley Cup celebrations was the Capitals winning, because it went on for like 5 consecutive days before anybody went to sleep. I mean, to me, that picture at the Nationals game of him in the box out in the outfield holding up the cup, that's like borderline iconic to me. There's a lot of things that went right for them last year. They have a good goaltending tandem, but like we talked about, I think it's more of an issue with just Carolina. It's just the way they built. It's not that the Capitals aren't a good team. It's not that they're not going to make the playoffs. It's just I don't think they're division contenders.
I think they could win the division. If it's not Carolina, I think it comes down to the Capitals. This is a team that yes, they exceeded expectations, but that core is basically the same. Like they're running it back, and they were very successful with the guys that they had there. And even if I don't expect Alex Ovechkin to score at the pace that he did, I still expect him to contribute. And I still expect that team to be, they were very good defensively as well. And that core is still there. And their goaltending split is still going to be there. There's a lot of things that they can replicate twice. And some guys, I feel like they've started to find a home, right? Kind of thing. And even for players like Tom Wilson is usually a guy who's out here getting suspended, and here he was being effective. Dylan Strome was really, really good. Pierre-Luc Dubois, we thought he died over in LA.
He found his home finally.
Finds his home. Don't forget, they got Protest is there, Connor McMichael is there, Hendrix Lapierre probably takes a spot, Ryan Leonard. Like they're a young-ish team as well. So they got guys who can contribute. Their back end, I think, is extremely solid, right? You got Chickering, you got Carlson, you got Sandin, and you got Watt. Those are 4 guys who can help you win hockey games, right? You have your offense; they're good defensively. Ferravari, Van Riemsdyk are still there. It's a solid 6, man, all around. There's no question about it. Solid 6. So if Carolina can't do it, then I do think the Capitals are the next up. I don't trust the Devils to be healthy. There's too many question marks there for me. They haven't done it. So I think the Capitals have demonstrated that they can be elite. Not just good, but elite.
Now, the Rangers are minus 200 to make the playoffs, plus 160 to miss the playoffs. Is that something you would consider, or do you think, because, maybe we got to talk about the Atlantic here and whether there's going to be an available spot for the wild card from, because it sounds like, to me, like you've got the Hurricanes, Capitals, Devils locked in as your 1, 2, 3 in the Metro, which I would agree with. I think that's pretty well. I would probably go Devils 2, Capitals 3, but I think the top 3 teams in that division are set. The only reason, maybe we're discounting the Rangers too much, because if you look at those 4 teams, who has the best goaltender of all of them is the Rangers, with Shesterkin. And last year, that's it. That was a lost season by Christmas. Just they got out of the gate okay, and then just they never recovered from everything we've talked about here on Total Hockey now with the locker room and Drury and all that stuff. They're not going to have that hanging over their heads this year. It's a new page, clean page, new coach. Mike Sullivan's in town. I think that they're a bounce back candidate. I don't know if they crack those top 3, but I do think they're probably good enough to get one of those wild card spots, which means somebody from the Atlantic that made the playoffs last year isn't making the playoffs this year. So we know the Panthers are making the playoffs. They're the easy choice to say, oh, they're going to win the Atlantic, but I almost think they're kind of in that Golden State Warriors mode where they realize, like, yeah, we just got to finish top 3. Don't get in that mix where you're in a wild card spot, or even try and make sure. Not to say they're not going to try to win the division, but like they don't care about winning the Atlantic. So that's one reason why I'd maybe caution against them, because they know how to win in the playoffs. They know how to turn it on when they need to turn it on. Bobrovsky's probably going to get rested a little bit more in the regular season, so you're going to be doing more Tarasov. I think yes, they're still a very good team, but for that reason, I think I'd maybe back off of them for division favorites.
So if they're not winning the division, who is?
You're not going to like my answer, but I mean, I'm going back to back with the Leafs. I'm going back with Toronto. Listen, I know Marner's gone, but I like the way they played in the regular season last year, and they're going to have a chip on their shoulder. They're going to have to go out and prove that they can still put up the same points without Mitch Marner. And again, Florida is the best team in that division. I'm not saying that the Leafs are better than them, but what I'm saying is the Panthers understand that winning the President's Trophy or winning the division doesn't matter. It's better to just be playing good hockey going into March and April and having that playoff spot locked up. But I don't think they're going to go unless they're in a position where they just need to hold people off or they're like within striking distance. But like you saw where they finished last year, they were on the road in the first round to Tampa. So, and didn't phase them in the least. So to me, to win the division, that's not a team I'm picking.
I agree that it's not great value because at plus 140, you're not getting much, but they get a full year of Seth Jones on the back end. They get a full year of Brad Marchand on that third line, and the gang is basically the same. So I don't think Tampa Bay went out and got significantly better. I think they're there. They are the Tampa Bay Lightning, and they're going to do what they're going to do. And the Leafs did not get better. They regressed. On paper, they regressed. And that defense group is just not good. I don't care how you spin it or how you want to care about it. They played Ottawa, and Ottawa was a young team trying to figure it out kind of thing. And it was what it was. But to me, it's Florida's division, and I do think that they will care because you don't want to have to play Tampa Bay or Toronto in the first round, even if you know you can beat them. Even if you want the path of least resistance, because at some point you're going to have to cross over, and you're going to have to play a team from the Metro, and then you're going to have to go to Stanley Cup Final, and you're going to have to play a team from the West. So, and we saw the Florida Panthers in their first year that they went to the finals when they got absolutely obliterated by Vegas, just the wear that it takes on your body. So you want to be able to get the easier opponent, if you will, settle that pretty quick, and then make sure your body is ready to go, especially with a couple of veterans that they have on that team now.
I think, well, I mean, my thinking is the opposite of that. Because they have a well-built squad, they know they can win on the road, they can do what they got to do. I think it's more important for them to feel a little fresher after 82 games than, all right, we got to give ourselves the easiest path as possible. And no, this guy's banged up, and Matthew Tkachuk played with all the injuries he played with through the playoffs. You know what I mean? So I think to me that's why I'm backing off them for the division. Now you said if they don't win the division, they're playing Tampa and Toronto in the first round. So you've got those as your top three. I don't know how you have them ranked, but those are your top three, correct?
I can't. As much as I love the Montreal Canadiens, I don't think that step is right there for them. And I mean, the Ottawa Senators are not I don't think they're a legitimate team.
Where are we on the Tampa Bay Lightning? Are they just as good as last year? Can they be better, or maybe a step back? Or are we starting to see the beginning of the decline of the Lightning?
I don't think it's a decline for Tampa Bay. I just don't they're still there, right? The core is
becoming more top heavy up front,
right? But they've kind of been not. I would say top. It's not crazy top heavy, right? They still have guys like Nick Paul. You brought in Oliver Bjorkstrand there. Yanni Gord's come back as well to center that fourth line. They're a good team. They're a good team all around. Their defense group is fine. They're guys who know how to win, and their goaltending, obviously, and by goaltending I mean Andre Vasilevsky only, is elite. So I could see them winning the division. It wouldn't surprise me. But again, it goes through the Florida Panthers. If the Florida Panthers suffer too many injuries and things aren't going well, and maybe it starts to catch up to them, having been to the finals now in 3 straight years. Maybe the body just starts to wear down more. I don't know, but I still think the Tampa Bay Lightning are a very good hockey team, and Julien Brisebois is going to do whatever he can to make this team relevant. The salary cap doesn't exist to them. First round picks don't exist to them. They're going to go out and do whatever they need to do to bolster that roster come trade deadline.
All right. So we've talked about 3 of the 5 teams there. Ottawa, listen, I think they're still in the mix to make the playoffs for sure. But when to steal the division from one of the 3 teams we talked about, no. Win the conference, no. To make the playoffs is minus 200, no plus 160. So same as the Rangers. So they've got them on a pretty much the same line. Now let's talk about your Canadians here. You don't have them in the mix to really win the division or maybe, or win the conference. But are you thinking back to the playoffs this year? Because they're plus 105, yes, no, minus 135.
And that's where most sports books will probably hold them at, which is a coin toss. The Montreal Canadiens last year, there were a lot of ups and a lot of downs. Like they were I wouldn't say miserable. They were bad, I guess, until Christmas, New Year. Then they went on that tear, and then they were miserable before the Four Nations break. Absolutely miserable. That break came at the right time. I think they lost 8 or 9 in a row or something. They were falling apart. Then they go on this massive tear before the trade deadline. Ken Hughes keeps everybody there, says, fine, you've earned it. Go with it. They kind of fiddle a little bit here. They needed to really dig in to get into the playoffs because Columbus was on a pace of we just don't lose anymore. It wouldn't surprise me if the Montreal Canadiens didn't make the playoffs, just because people think a rebuild has to be kind of linear, right? You have to get better every year. But this is still a very young team, and there are still holes in this offense and on the back end. This is still a team that gave up a ton of shots per game, and you can't keep doing that. The expectation is probably that Samuel Montembeault is going to play way too many hockey games, which I think he should play less. We've talked about this nonstop, and I don't think they're going there yet. The defense group is still young. Bringing in Noah Dobson helps that. And now you get a full year of Ivan Demidov in the NHL. So there are lots of things. There are lots of positives there. And I could see why some folks would be like, hey, they can do this again. I am of the belief that they can, obviously, because I think that they're getting there. You want to see less of those ups and downs. You want it to be not as roller coaster. You know what I mean? Like, even if you don't win 8 in a row, just don't lose 8 in a row. You know what I mean? Don't have that kind of peak and valley thing.
Now, the mock draft link is in the chat. If you want to get signed up for that, I've already picked spot 11 right there. Now, based on everything you're saying, it sounds like you have Montreal back for the playoffs, which would mean either Ottawa's out or the Rangers are out. So you have Ottawa out. So between those two, you think the Rangers bounce back, Ottawa takes a step back.
Ottawa is they're just kind of their team. I don't think they're good enough to get to where they need to be just yet. The Rangers, if I'm comparing the Ottawa Senators and the New York Rangers, the Rangers have the better goalie by a margin, by a wide margin. Their offense is also much better, just like flat out better. Their defense is the questionable part here, right? Because there are some guys on the back end that you're like, what am I going to get out of them, right? What am I going to get out of the Carson Soucies and whatnot? Does this liberate Adam Fox to be a much better defenseman now that he's not handcuffed? Shackled. Yeah, handcuffed to Lindgren and stuff. There's a couple of question marks on the blue line, but I think they can figure it out. And I don't think Ottawa is there just yet. I don't.
That Fox Gavrikov blue line is going to log heavy.
They are, and Gavrikov is not like it's an overpay. Let's not get it twisted. That's way too much money for what he is. But
it's what they needed.
It's probably what they needed. Yeah. And he's going to come out and he's going to be great defensively. And you said it best. They're going to log probably 25, 26 minutes a night, which is what you need. So I think they'll be just fine. I think they have so many good pieces there that the Ottawa Senators don't have.
That's to me. I mean, between those two, and I know like people be like, "Oh, you're a Ranger fan, whatever," but no, like between those two, I could see I think the Rangers are back in the playoffs this year. I don't know what they do, but I think there's a lot of positive changes there. Gabe Perreault is probably going to play for the full season there. Mika looks like he's going to be on the wing at least for now. He played better there certain stretches. There's a lot to sort out with that team. Like,
you also get a full year of JT Miller, right?
Yes.
Like those are those things. Like those are those players you bring in to lead. I don't think the Rangers will suffer the collapse with the leadership group that they have in there. There's some guys that have been moved out, yes, but there's also some guys that have come in. And you brought in players who can play, specifically Miller, at both ends of the ice. He's also a physical presence. Like, he can throw his weight around. And the Rangers, maybe for the better part of last year, looked like a team that was soft. And now you bring in JT Miller, who can also go out there, throw his weight, lead by example, and be like, hey, this is how we have to play. A little bit more, I guess coaches want to call them sandpaper to their game. Gavrikov is exactly that. The offense isn't going to come there, but it's the sandpaper. It's the hard to play against. It's the eating up the minutes. And then you just need Igor to be elite, right? You paid him like he is. Be one.
That's also why your second pairing is Carson Soucy and Will Borgen, to go back to that whole sandpaper theme and just being a tough team. And listen, in the Metropolitan, we talked about how deep the Capitals are, the way the Hurricanes are built. That's how you're going to beat those teams. That's how you're going to try and that's just how it has to be. The Devils are kind of cut differently than those other three teams. So sometimes you don't want to fight fire with fire, and
it's all skill for the Devils, man. That is a highly skilled team, and we'll see if that skill can keep up. I believe they're a playoff team. What they do when they get there, though, figure it out, kind of thing. But they certainly have an abundance of skill in their lineup.
And don't get me wrong, like, Ottawa's built well. They're going to be a tough team. They're going to be in the mix, I think, all year round. Fabian Zetterlund for a full season, is that something to write home about? No, but watching the way he played with the Sharks, that's a nice addition to them. That's like an unheralded guy that's going to do the things that don't show up on the score sheet, but that absolutely help. Bringing in a guy like Lars Eller to increase your depth. He's still a rock solid, bottom line center. Yeah, there's just, it's similar to what we talked about with the Blue Jackets and the Islanders. I think the Rangers have a higher ceiling, whereas Ottawa is maybe a little more steady. But I would lean Rangers there between those two teams to get that last playoff spot.